everybody. It's Isaac from Brothers on Tennis, and look who we have here. We have Miss Lindsay Davenport. Lindsay, I have been a fan of yours for so very long.
Are you being honest?
I am being honest.
Are you really being honest?
I am being honest because, first of all, you were the one person, in my opinion, you were able to stand out in the midst of the whole Serena Venus uprising, if you will. We love the Williams sisters, but you actually got in there and you were like, make room, make some room, because I got some space here. I need space.
It's so crazy. If you look back at the era when Venus and Serena first started playing mid-90s, really they were really young. Yeah. They really started to hit their stride 98, 99, and then it took off from there. But if you ever go back and look at like the top 10 rankings, like from some of those years, it was it was a crazy era. Like there were so many great players, and obviously Venus and Serena changed that entire generation because of what they brought to the court and what amazing athletes and how hard they hit and how well they served. But it was a crazy time. We had so many personalities and so many players. And then up came these two just remarkable champions who at the time kind of took the tennis world by storm. And who would have thought they'd still be playing at their late 30s?
Isn't that amazing?
Crazy. That would be the one thing I would not have predicted back in the day.
I think you and I mean, and even Richard, he said, they'll be gone by the mid-20s and we won't see anymore. They'll be on fashion and movies. But for you, Lindsay, you won everything. I mean, you were number one in the world. You got all the Grand Slam titles, minus the French, but that's okay. You made the semifinals.
I was going to say no
French.
You
got the semifinals, though. And on the double side, you were crushing it on the double side as well. I am just, like I said, a big fan of yours. I love the fact that you're so humble, and just the humility that you show is just, it's crazy, because you are a champion in all rights.
That's very sweet of you. So I grew up in a house. I was the youngest of two sisters. And I had one sister that was like, don't you ever talk about your tennis. I don't want to sit at dinner and have to hear about your tennis. I was like, like 10, 11, 12. I was always like, oh my gosh. So I never would talk about it at home, even from a young age. Okay. So it never was really comfortable, like talking about it. It's obviously something to look back on now. It feels like a different life. It feels like just a completely different. It doesn't even feel real, to be honest. We were watching the Tokyo Olympics last summer. And, because of the time delay, I kind of knew what was happening in opening ceremonies. And I said to my 12-year-old daughter, like, we have to watch. Osaka's going to light the torch. Like, this is going to be amazing. Like, can you believe this? And so we stayed up to watch, and she was saying, we're talking about the Olympics, and she's like, well, you didn't play in like that Olympics. I was like, yeah, that's the Olympics I played in. She's like, no, Mom, like I know, like there's different like levels, but not like Olympics like the Tokyo one. I just laughed to myself. Like, if you want to be really humble, have some kids that are like, oh my gosh, who are you? What are you talking about?
That is hilarious, Lindsay.
Yeah, that's my life.
Well, you talked about how back in the day there was kind of the dominating. I mean, you had the Hingis, and we won't go all the way back, but you had yourself, you have the Williams sisters, Capriati was in there. It seems like now any of 15 women can grab a Grand Slam. What's kind of your thinking on that? Is it a good thing, a bad thing, or kind of where do you sit on that?
It's so interesting because when I first came, it was the time of Steffi and Monica, and then
can't forget Monica.
Exactly.
Right.
So it and then it was like, oh, it's so boring. Who's going to get to the finals? And then it was all these different men had a chance, and that was exciting. But then once it became about the women this last 10 years, we weren't sure. It was like, oh, we need a dominant force. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like the depth is much stronger now. We had really, really good players in the top 20. It was crazy. Yeah. But I feel like that level between like 20 and 100, they've really gotten a lot better. The sport has gotten more athletic. It's gotten more involved, if you want to say that. Yeah. So I think overall the level's higher. I think that the players at the very top are dealing with a lot more than we had to deal with. We used to stress about newspaper articles. Like, what is the guy going to say about my forehand? And now these players, there's social media. I think that is a real issue for a lot of them. There's a lot more commitment going around with, I think, other companies and the time given. So I think sometimes that some of them might maybe just struggle in managing the time and the tennis. I still love watching him play. Every time someone wins their first major, I'm like crying like a baby in the booth. Mary Carrillo, who I work with so much, she's always like, just here's the tissue. I love it. I like having you don't know what's going to happen. But certainly I would love to see our very best players players playing each other more in some big matches.
Absolutely.
That's the best thing for women's tennis.
I agree with you. Well, hopefully Ash is starting to, kind of build that little dominance. So hopefully that can happen with her. I also want to ask you one last thing just in regards to your transition.
Yeah.
Because you successfully transitioned from player to basically the booth announcer.
Who knows what I do?
Well, I will tell you this. Myself and my co-host Bryce, we consider you and Chanda to be the top of the top. Whenever someone comes on Tennis Channel, we're like, okay, how are they measuring up with Lindsay and Chanda? We just love the both of you. How has that transition gone for you?
It was a supernatural one. It's so funny you mentioned Chanda. I mean, we grew up together in junior tennis. We spent 2 years traveling together between the ages of 15 and 17 when we first came on tour.
Yeah.
And now we go back to these tournaments, and like at Wimbledon, we stay together. And
Nice.
It's been fun to kind of make that transition with a friend. I quit playing singles in 2008. That fall, Tennis Channel called me and said, do you want to come into our studio? It's about an hour from your home. We'll call some tennis. And they really helped kind of me get into this world. And they've become like a family to me. So I've always feel I do better when I really like the people that I'm around. And they've been wonderful. And in the beginning, it actually was quite easy. I knew all the players. I played against them. I felt like what their balls felt like when they were playing, what the shots were like when they were coming at you. Now it's a little more tricky. I got to do a lot more research and watch a lot on YouTube and try and get a feel because I'm not actually out there facing the kind of shots that are coming at me.
Right.
But I love tennis. I couldn't imagine my life without it. I couldn't imagine not being involved in some capacity. So I feel really lucky that my transition, I was happy to get out of the so-called limelight when it was on me. I don't mind talking about tennis, but I've been really blessed. The sport has given me really my everything, and so I couldn't imagine my life without it.
Well, you have given us so much, and we thank you so very much. Lindsay Davenport,
Thank you,
everyone,
guys.
thank you so much.
Yep.